So thanks very much, Raymond, for taking the time and joining me and recording this conversation as well, and agreeing to put it out to a wider audience. I mean, just by way of introduction to the people watching our conversation, Ray and I used to work together about 15 years ago. We were doing contract jobs at a retailer, and we used to sit across the desk from each other, and we used to chat and put the world to rights and talk everything from business to business partnering and finance to careers and everything. In fact, sometimes we talked so much that we had to work late to make up for it. And we've kept in touch ever since. And every single time we talk, it's exactly the same. It's as if we're sitting across the desk from each other and having these conversations, and we go on for ages. So I thought it was a really nice idea to share one of our conversations. The particular thing that we agreed to talk about is kind of coaching in the context of finance, careers, and that kind of thing. But another point of introduction is that after that contract, Raymond then went on to be a very successful finance director in one of the well-known firms of recruiters in London, and did that for a long time. And then suddenly, probably not sudden to him, but suddenly decided that it was time to give up the world of employment and go and start his own business. And he got a coaching qualification and went out on his own. So I'm going to stop introducing now and let Raymond talk. So you were a full-time finance director, and so what made you want to leave and become a trained coach and set up a business on your own?
Well, first, Andy, thanks much for the opportunity to do this. I'm really looking forward to it. Three reasons, really. Personal development's always been a big thing of mine.
Yeah.
So stepping out and doing, and I've always been interested in coaching and that sort of stuff. From, I think every time I changed jobs, I looked at coaching or some kind of educational role.
Yeah.
My style as an FD has always involved quite a coaching element to it in terms of senior leaders and partners. So in that respect, it's always been a part of me. And the reason, but what I actually noticed at the time was this now 5 years ago, was a gap in the market in the small, medium-sized business sector for a part-time FD who understood what business owners were going through.
Yeah.
So I decided that to put to go and train to be a coach, put my personal style and my technical skills to the test, and work with a number of small and medium-sized business owners.
Yeah. So what is it you do now? Are you still doing that?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, it's a blend of coaching and part-time finance director. I work with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses to really make more insightful financial and commercial decisions.
Yeah.
Really taking into context what the impact is on them, so that it's not solely a business decision. It's understanding the implications of that for them, and ultimately, if you're in a small business, family. So it's brings my coaching and part-time FDing together.
Yeah, I mean, I remember us talking, and way back when you're getting excited, setting it all up, and it was all about the whole person, not just the cash flow forecast and the management accounts or whatever. There's a whole person involved in the business owner, and I thought that was a really great way of because I always say as well, finance is about people. It's not about numbers. It's about people at the end of the day. So understanding the people you're dealing with is a big part of it. So let's talk about the coaching side of things, because I think coaching is a big part of the thing you offer to small business owners, as well as the finance expertise. So talking about coaching in general, what difference does coaching make? I mean, why should more people think about getting coaching?
Well, I think one of the coaching's really good for one of probably two or three reasons, really. Firstly, I think the degree of self-awareness you obtain by being coached is absolutely massive.
Yeah.
Knowing yourself, and I think if you're a senior finance professional, I think that's really, really important. Wanting to be one, that's massively knowing what works for you, what doesn't work for you, the challenges, the strengths. Second is performance. I think it's great to enhance performance once you get a better understanding of who you are and how you approach some of these challenges that are the way you would, rather than the way almost like the way the book says. And the third one I think is for especially for career planning and goal setting. I think is massive, because it brings out that opportunity for you to get that holistic plan ahead of you and understand and actually create the plan. I think which is massive. I think it's really, really big.
Yeah. And do you think what would be the difference kind of from doing those things on your own? So you could read a book that tells you how to do a career plan. What's the difference having a coach involved?
I think one of the big differences is you only know what you know. And I think sometimes having a slightly different perspective and I think also asking yourself your own questions, you get your own answers. And I think having someone ask a few questions to actually elicit out of you what's really important and when you say something about, I want to be an FD, what does that actually mean? And sometimes I think when we do it ourselves, it can be very much at a surface level. Yes, I want to be an FD. I want to work in a technology-based business. But what does that? And I think with a coach, you get a little bit more flavour out of what those answers actually mean to you.
Yeah. Have you ever been coached or mentored?
Since I've been an FD, I've had either or a coach or mentor most of my career.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think it's exceptionally important. I would say that probably when the coaching has really, really helped is when I've been looking at career change and actually really taking the opportunity to step back and have a look at what I'm doing and where I want to go. Hence, when I left employment to set up on my own, I had a coach at the time. And early in my career, especially early on in my career, when I was stepping through from being effectively really a finance orientated individual to more business orientated, I was coached. And it really helped me understand not only what I was wanting to do moving forward, but also the challenges and kind of what I expected to happen, and also provided the support. So when it didn't go quite according to plan, there was someone there alongside me.
So what was that like? Career coaching? Would you have called that career coaching or some other type of coaching? Was it more general?
No, I certainly looked at it as career coaching.
Yeah,
I certainly looked at it as career coaching because it was at pivotal points in my career that I really engaged with a coach. So I definitely would have seen it as career coaching, definitely.
And did those coaches have like finance experience, or was it a bit of a problem sometimes that they didn't really know, or was that not kind of the career questions that you were asking? It wasn't really about finance careers. It was more about what should I do with my life kind of questions.
I would say when I was progressing as a finance director, my coaches had finance backgrounds.
Right. Okay.
They were former FDs, maybe a little bit more also business orientated, I would suggest, rather than accountants, but they were FDs. My last coach was not. No, he was a business coach who understood finance, so it was slightly different. But during my finance director career, no, it was a finance director.
Right. Okay. So in terms of people you've coached, or even in your own situation, I mean, have you got an example or two of where coaching has made a big difference to someone, and what was it that kind of triggered that big difference that wouldn't have happened without coaching?
Well, I think from coaching someone from a finance perspective, a financial controller who worked with me at the time. So that's one of the challenges, is when you have to separate the coaching from the management. She was interested. one of the big things she was interested in was deciding what to do with her career.
Right.
And what the opportunity would have been to be an FD, or a sort of head of finance to FD following me, or to do something different. And she actually wanted to work in practice, go into an accountancy, but yeah. And part of that, and a big part of that, is actually understanding motivations and why, and actually getting into what she wanted to do, why she wanted it, and what she really saw as being the benefits of going that way.
Yeah.
Over a period of about 12, maybe 18 months, it was, in the end, she decided that she wanted to do that. It was introduced her to people who I knew in practice, who could share with them her experiences in terms of what it was actually like, what the differences were, and she decided to make the change. She now works in a senior role within a small accountancy practice in London. So and I think the big opportunity was for her to actually sit down and actually map it out, and actually have the opportunity to really think it through, and plan it. From a business perspective, one of the big things I used to do in my last role was actually coach partners in the business around the awareness of finance and understanding their numbers. So I worked very closely with one partner in particular who ran a small, high six-figure practice, who'd never been a business owner, never ran a practice. And over a period of time, it was to support and help her understand what a good business owner looked like for her, what the numbers meant for her, and actually getting her to understand what it was like to run a practice, having been a really good fee earner. The outcome of that was she was able to stand up in front of the CEO and the group finance director and hold her own when it came to budget conversations, and really be able to stand up as I run a practice. It isn't, don't ask me to be an 80-hour a week biller. If you want me to build a business, let me build a business. And I think that was, but the big thing there was that she actually got an opportunity to talk confidently and confidentially with someone about the challenges that she had, and the insecurities of actually going from being someone who's exceptionally good at billing to being someone who was being asked to build something a business which went to be low seven figures. So and I think and she's done it, and as I see it now, she's still doing the same thing.
That's brilliant, and I think that shows the one of the things I see. I don't know what you think in terms of coaching, is the confidence thing that you get from having a coach or a mentor. Is sort of, once you've had that sounding board and you've talked it through with somebody, then your actions are more confident afterwards. So in those two examples, probably they were having those thoughts whirring around their heads anyway, but without having the conversation with you, they wouldn't have formed into an action plan. And so they'd have gone round and round in circles for many more years, and perhaps not ever made the step that they needed to make.
Yeah, and I would say that it's the same thing for me when I look to leave employment.
Right. Yeah.
It's one of those things that went around for a while, and it was only when I met the coach who took me out through that period that I actually went, probably now is actually I've got a bit more of an idea and a plan. It actually does give, and also you're right, confidence is a big thing in any of this, and just knowing that you can talk to someone and actually share with someone and actually know that they're there to support you as well, because a lot of the coaching is about the personal support that comes with it. And know that if you step forward, that actually you're not walking on your own. You've got someone walking alongside you. And they can that steady hand on the shoulder. And at some point that hand comes away, but early on it's especially necessary.
And I think where you've got loads of options as well, because certainly I find sometimes there's lots of options and they go round and round your head, and until you get somebody to talk to about them, then you don't choose the option, and you actually at some point need to make a decision, otherwise you're just stuck. So
yes,
it's I think that's one of the advantages as well. But what have you learned about the difference between coaching, mentoring, and teaching, and how they can all work together?
Well, coaching is the icing on the cake here, I think. I think sometimes
Right.
we look at it to be, it's not the solution in terms of everything. You need all three, okay?
Yeah.
Because fundamentally, we learn and we have to take whatever plans we come up with in our coaching, we need to take them into battle, don't we? Right. And
Yeah.
that's where I think the mentoring and the teaching comes in really helpful, because
Right.
even when you create a great plan with a coach, the implementation when you're out there on a day-to-day basis working is finding the best ways to do things, and actually having a mentor who can share experiences as to how they've done it in the past, what has worked for them, what could work for someone else, for the person who's you're talking to, is massive. And then the ability to actually go and do the work and know that you have someone there who can, in the teaching capacity, say, well, you know what, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 3, it does equal 2, and actually, and it is that holistic three parts together that actually work. But every part of that is very distinctively different. And I think it's important that we recognize that it's teaching is about, hands-on and doing the work. But imagine in the classroom. And I think the bigger bit we get confused is mentoring and coaching. But I would say great coaches can mentor.
Yes.
Yeah. Because at times you do need. I always used to say to my coach, if you've got a great idea and you see me struggling, please don't let me sit here for 2 hours and wait for me to find an answer if you just can't see it coming. I'm an adult, so if I put the shirt on and it's 2 inches too short or long in the sleeve, that's fine. But let me try it on, and maybe I can find a way for it to work for me. As in, maybe I can shorten the sleeves and make a short sleeve shirt. Was the analogy I used to use with my coach. But help me as well. But let's recognise the difference when there's coaching, when it's me coming out with my own thoughts and articulating. And then when we're trying to implement some of it, we'll share some experience with me. I'm quite relaxed if you want to. And I think sometimes it's important to recognise the difference. But good coaches, and that's where I think having in some respects, having a finance coach actually helps, because they have been that route, they understand it, and they can share experience as well.
Yeah. And I think especially in finance as well, in some ways, because certainly my view is that over the last few decades, finance roles and the career progression has got more complicated. Sort of the rise of FP&A and finance business partnering, and just the whole push to get closer to the business has actually made things a lot more complicated than just qualifying as an accountant, doing some reporting and getting some more experience managing a few people and then getting promoted to an FD level. That's probably the way that it used to go broadly. But now there's so many different options, and, data scientists and risk managers and internal auditors and control frameworks and Lean Six Sigma and, so many different things that I think that sort of having somebody who's been through that and seen that landscape is kind of helpful to people, because how can I put it? A generic career coach will just say well, let's work on what you want to do. But if you don't know the options for what you want to do, where are you a bit stuck?
Yeah, and I think also it's generalisms are, when you asked me back at the beginning about was it a career coach, a general career coach kind of, or a finance coach, I think there are times and places for both. But I think when you're if we go back to like when we were at school, we were getting career advice. It's like you get what you get is general. You get career advice from a generalist. It's there's a place for that, but ultimately I think it does help in a technical field like finance, as in you say, a broad field where you are talking about a career, a not a linear career, but a career path. I think it does help that the person who you're talking to at least has an appreciation for what is actually for what is actually required to walk that path. Well, the old Asian proverb is, if you want to know what the path ahead is like, ask the man who's walking back. And I think therefore someone who's walked that path before in a finance director capacity is very, very helpful. Very helpful.
Yeah, certainly I found that as well. And just going back to the difference between sort of coaches and mentors, one thing, I don't know if you agree with this, one thing I've kind of observed is that they do slightly different things, but they all seem to use a similar skill set. So when you're looking at the conversations that a coach has and a mentor has, and even a counselor actually, because that's another type of role, but they all use those kind of core skills of listening and questioning and challenging. But it's kind of the slightly different relationships, but the same skills.
Yes, and I think that I think that's the uniqueness of all this, isn't it? It is in many ways many of the same skills. It's just a slightly different take on them when you're experiencing them, and in some ways mentoring is just slightly more directive. Some ways it is just slightly more directive, but it is the same questions, because ultimately, even if you're mentoring, you're looking to first and foremost understand what the person already knows, because to understand the gap between where they are and where they want to get to and how much you need to fill in, you're still looking at it from how big's the gap I'm looking to fill here, and what is relevant to share. So an analogy I use with finance professionals clients and with clients is, I might well be in comparison to where you are, I might well be 3-star Michelin food. But if you just want the best Italian restaurant in Surrey, I need to find a way to bring my 3-star Michelin knowledge and experience down into a way that you can cope with and that you need right now. So until I can understand where you are, even if you want me to share my knowledge with you, I don't know how much to share or where to start unless I understand where you are anyway.
So what would you say to somebody who may be thinking that they need a coach or a mentor, but they're wondering whether it's worth the money? Because coaches and mentors do, unless you get a scheme that's run in like a finance function in your company, then these things can cost money. So, what would you say to somebody who's wondering whether it's worth the money?
It certainly is a worthwhile investment in you as an individual. I would say that. What I would say is that many coaches will offer initially it's all about chemistry anyway. So most coaches will offer a small opportunity, whether it's low cost or free, over maybe a three period introduction session or something like that, where you can get to know them. And coaches are fairly transparent. It's not all face to face now. A lot of it is now also online. So I think I think the cost is not. I don't doubt it'll be as prohibitive as it possibly could have been in the past. But I think most coaches there'll be a way to introduce with a client, with a coach in the first instance anyway. And if you're unsure, join a group, because that way you're not on your own. You will also get feedback around you of other people as well. So that is another way to reduce the cost. I think but if you want to have a career, at some point you need to work out what investment you're going to put into yourself to develop, because ultimately your career will only develop you only get to where you want to get to by investing in yourself first. So but there are many ways.
Yeah, sure. And it's interesting you mentioned getting into a group. Is that do you mean like a group coaching? Or
some kind of online like group learning. I think there's one of my own experiences about learning is I'm not a great group learner. I would accept that. I prefer one-on-one.
Right.
However, and knowing that there are others around you who are as interested in you being successful as you are, and who are on the same path, maybe at different places, but on the same path, is a massive positive when you're unsure in the especially early stages. You can then see if it's really what you want to do.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it really works well.
And actually, I've found in those sort of group, there's different ways you can do it. I mean, there's the group coaching, which is kind of facilitated by a coach, but they sort of go around and talk about each one's different issues, and they have like hot seats and stuff like that, where everyone contributes to thrashing out somebody's issue, and then they move on to the next person and stuff like that, and that can be quite effective. But then there's kind of mastermind groups as well, which are more sort of peer group support. I kind of look at those things and think, actually, they may get you. It may be like an 80-20 rule. You may get almost 80% of what you would do with a one-to-one relationship anyway. Because it's kind of the thrashing out of the ideas and going through the options and then coming up with the action plan. And if you can get that in a group, then sort of
and I think you mentioned the mastermind groups. Some of the best mastermind groups have an element of one-to-one.
Yes,
but they are mastermind groups. And then what you have the opportunity from that is to come out into a one-to-one environment for a small piece of time. So actually that one keeps the cost lower for the individual, but two, gives you a good balance between group learning and experience sharing, and actually time on your own to actually reflect and actually bring it to a conclusion for yourself. So I think that's quite a good way of doing it as well. I think one of the things individuals got to work out is the way they learn best, and I think it's really important to work out what works. If it's 80% group learning, 20% individual independent, or 80% independent, 20% group, don't go all one way, but get the balance in a way that works for you.
Yeah. I mean, and it sort of crosses my mind that all this talk about knowing your kind of what works best for you in terms of learning and growing and developing. It really strikes me as something that's intentional. And a lot of people aren't intentional, I don't think, about their careers. They sort of just let it happen and, suddenly wake up one day and say, I fancy a change, or I'm fed up here, I need to move jobs, or whatever. But there's very few people who are intentional about it and actually see the the stepping stones that they may have to take and the options ahead of them. I mean, that's a worthwhile question probably. Is career planning worthwhile? I mean, do you think it's so uncertain that it's better to take sort of every year and every job opportunity pretty much as it comes?
No, I think there's a place for both here. I think fundamentally you need to have a plan.
Yeah.
I think that you need to have a plan. What you need to also do in the interim is you need to put in sensible checks and balances, markers where you stop and reassess.
Yeah.
So I think, because I wouldn't look at too far ahead. I think 3 years, 5 years. I think if we were looking at the role at the time that most FDs are in post is 5 to 7 years. So in one job, I think I would say that if you took if you looked at the beginning of the year where you wanted to be at the end of the year, put that in some degree of context of a longer 3 to 5 year plan, but keep reassessing where you are. Because I would say, so for me, I started out as an accountant. I started out as a financial accountant.
Yeah.
As I get cold now thinking about it. And I spent the first 3 or 4 years of my career as a financial accountant, actually went to be a management accountant, and actually got an opportunity that came out of the blue, really, to be a management accountant. And I think at that point, that was when I went, no, I need to not fall into jobs.
Yeah.
Right, I need to have a plan, and therefore, and consciously decide at different points. And actually, the funny thing was, when the best break of my career came, I was actually on my way out the door to go and be a systems accountant.
Oh, really?
And this was, yes, I was, and I stepped into a commercial manager's role, and I had an offer on the table to be a systems accountant. Now, systems accountant and commercial manager are so widely different.
Yeah.
And Can you imagine? And at that point, that's when I went, no, I need a plan.
Yeah.
It was at that point my career changed, and that was like, no, I need a plan. And I think therefore you then reassess on a consistent basis where you are relative to where you want to be, because life changes, opportunities change, but keeping true to yourself, you can then adjust direction on a consistent basis anyway, whenever you're ready. And it will take you some wonderful. Well, it took us overseas, Andy. Yeah, it took us to work for an international business.
Yeah.
So it just takes you where you probably maybe if you're not, you need to be intentional. I agree with you, Andy. That is the biggest thing. I think that's, you do need to have intent with what you want to do.
Yeah, and I think it's and it's more of a direction than a map, if you know what I mean. So it's not like a GPS sat nav or something that's going to plot exactly the route and exactly the roles that you need for the next 10 years. It's more like, I want to go that way. And one of the things I've learned is that it's okay to be ambitious as well.
Yes.
And actually, where you talk about sort of looking 3 to 5 years ahead, I think it's okay to say, eventually I want to be a CFO at some point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's okay to say that, but it's also okay to say, I just want to get as far as I can get. But so long as you're sort of thinking in terms of, this is the direction I want to go. Like you go back to that person that you were coaching. You know, do I want to go into practice, or do I want to be a management accountant or a systems accountant? Those are the kind of directions that you can think of, because they all lead in different ways.
And I bet you need to be, but ultimately you need to be true to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And actually have the flexibility to realize that not everything is going to work out exactly as you want it to.
Yes.
But
and you are going to graze your knees and fall over sometimes. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to pick the wrong path sometimes. And I think that if everybody had a linear career, that would be awesome, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It'd be a bit boring as well, though. I mean,
yes.
I kind of wish, from my point of view, that my career had been a little bit more smooth than it has been. But you know, when I look back at the variety, it's sort of I would have never picked that. But actually, it's been pretty fantastic meeting all the people that I've met and doing all the different things that I've done. So I think you need to have that mindset of seeing the positives and being flexible, but still having in mind, actually, I really want to move in this direction if I can.
Yes, I think that's fair. Very fair.
Yeah. So what would you say are the top few things qualified accountants, let's bring it back to like just qualified, what should they be thinking of when they're considering their next steps and their career progression?
So for me, there's three things here. One is obviously make sure that they have a plan for their own personal development. I think that's really, really important. Second one, I think they need to be conscious about the fact that a big part of what they do and will do moving forward is about relationship building and working within business or with anybody, with other people. I think I'm taking the technical side of this to one as a given in many respects. The third bit, I think, which is going to be exceptionally important moving forwards, and I think given the market and the world we live in right now, is decision making, and understanding how decisions are made and being able to influence those decisions that are made. Because I think commerciality and having a better, broader understanding, bringing finance into a business context, but actually just understanding how people, and not only how companies make decisions, how individuals that they work with, so CEOs they work with, other finance professionals, other senior leaders, how they make decisions as well. So you've got to be up to date with your accounting and everything else. But I think relationships, decision making, and having a personal development plan are musts for FDs right now.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So finally, I wanted to finish with what you're doing and what you're going out to do in the future. So who do you want to help most now, and how can people get in touch with you if they want to have a conversation about your help?
Well, I'm working with small, medium-sized business owners, but also their commercial teams, their leadership teams. So the main person other than the CEO or business owner I work with is the senior finance professional in the business.
Yeah.
So the way I work with senior finance professionals in the business is to get them to understand how they see the business through the eyes of the business owner, so that they're able to bring their skills and their experience to that senior leader or leadership team in a way that actually helps them understand the decision that needs to be made. So small business owners and mid-sized business owners, yes, but also senior finance professionals in those businesses who would like to contribute more or find a way to engage more with the owner or ownership team of those businesses they work within.
Yeah. Yeah.
And probably the best way to get hold of me is through my email, which is raymond.holt@agnentis.com.
Excellent. Well, I would highly recommend people in those small businesses to get in touch with you, especially around the London area, to take that forward if you need help with the finances, but also with just business management. I think Ray has a great breadth of understanding, and as he's spoken about, it's about what the business means to you as much as, and what the finances mean to you as much as just what the numbers are and understanding the numbers.
Yes.
So I think that's I hope that will really resonate with people and business owners. So and I really wish you luck, and I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot more over the coming weeks to check in and stuff like that. So
that's brilliant. Thank you very much, Andy.
That's fine. Thank you very much.